Jane Velez-Mitchell for Jane Unchained with our Boycott Meat Roundtable. So much going on in this space. It's really hard to figure out where to start, but we're going to start with Zoe Rosenberg because, wow, she did something extraordinary this week at UC Berkeley. This sign, Stop Pandemics, Ban Meat. And here she is, chained with a chain around her neck at this action. Tell us exactly what's going on, Zoe.
Yeah, so, we actually did an investigation of a factory pig farm that supplies to UC Berkeley. So it supplies to their dining halls. So UC Berkeley, Cal Dining has all sorts of claims on their website about being ethical and humane and sustainable and all of these things, as we often hear when looking into, places that serve and sell meat. And so, when I was accepted to UC Berkeley this past spring, I wanted to see,
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Can we, she's frozen a little bit. All right. We're going to come back to her. It was a great story and we will come back. Joe, let's go to you. Joe Enriquez Henry of Forward Latino. You issued a news release that just hit the wires condemning Smithfield's Farmer John million hot dog giveaway as revealing a lack of concern for slaughterhouse workers. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, thank you, Jane. Yes, in light of the pandemic, in the breakout of the virus in the slaughterhouses across the country and around the world, this makes no sense to be handing out 1 million hot dogs to essential workers in slaughterhouses who are being infected and dying in many of these slaughterhouses across the country. This is an irony. It makes no sense. It's a slap in the face of science, and it's uncalled for. We do not condone this, and we know that many workers and unions would not condone this at this point in time.
Yeah, and let's go to our other guests. We have Cesar, Asebedo, and Ellen Dent with us. First of all, you were the one who tipped off Forward Latino and the Latino labor organizations that this giveaway was happening. So why did you feel like this was something that really needed to be confronted? And by the way, we invite Smithfield, which is a Chinese-owned company, on any time to comment.
Well, actually, Paige sent us the news story, where they were actually showing how they were handing out all of these hot dogs to the community and calling them protein, trying to make them look like an essential product, which they are not. And in essence, they're basically handing out like cigarettes to the community. Like imagine if this food truck was cigarettes, they were passing out cigarettes, everyone would be outraged. But according to the World Health Organization, this is a group 1 carcinogen, just like cigarettes. So they might as well be handing out cigarettes to the community. And we all know how helpful those are, to people. So, we're just really appalled that they're trying to look like the good guy here, handing out, these ground up pieces of these baby pigs to the community. And in essence, they're actually causing people to become more sick, and workers are risking their lives every day by going to work to make these items.
So Joe Enriquez Henry with Forward Latino, when you saw this, what was your reaction? Because then you proceed to issue this news release that is getting picked up. Smithfield's Farmer John million hot dog giveaway reveals lack of concern for slaughterhouse workers. The facts are clear. Slaughterhouses have been hotbeds of COVID-19 infection and spread since the CDC started tracking cases months ago. With little concern for their workforce, much of the meat processing industry continues to operate without following some of the basic guidelines. Again, we invite Smithfield on any time. Why did you feel this was important enough in terms of workers' rights to issue a news release about it?
Well, clearly this, what they're doing goes against the science, what the CDC has been reporting, how the outbreak has occurred, especially in these slaughterhouses across the country. the overwhelming majority of people of color have been the people of color, many of which have been in these facilities, who are dying because there is no safe distance between workers in these facilities. These are unsafe working conditions in these facilities. Workers are dying. Of course, animals have been killed in order to serve this unessential food material, and this needs to stop. These are not the places for workers to be, and of course, this goes against animal rights, and it also has an impact on the climate in the way in which animals are used as a form of food. It is not essential and unsafe for workers, and we need to be making it clear to the public what is going on in these facilities. These are Chernobyls for the virus, and this needs to stop. The truth needs to be put out there. So we're calling attention to this and to any misinformation that is occurring across the country.
Now, let's talk about this image that you sent me. Is this a slaughterhouse worker? For those who think, well, it's like the flu, okay? I've had the flu. I've never been hooked up like that.
Yes, this is a slaughterhouse worker. This was a worker at JBS in Greeley, Colorado, who had been at the plant for 20-some years. Due to the virus and the unsafe working conditions in that facility, it only took a virus like this to break out, to cause havoc. There was no safety procedures in that workplace. And of course, these places have no safety precautions to protect the workers. So workers are dying. Of course, animals are dying. And this needs to stop.
So, okay, what we're talking about here is a very bad COVID outbreak at Farmer John. It was written up in the LA Times. It got a lot of media coverage. And so workers got sick. There were fatalities, correct? Cesar? And then to say thank you to the workers, they distribute hot dogs, which the World Health Organization has determined to be cancer causing. So I hate to say it, but it's almost like, well, if you don't get sick and die going to the job, here, we're going to give you something that causes cancer. I mean, I just find the whole thing completely mind-boggling. Cesar, you have done many, many vigils outside Farmer John and other slaughterhouses. It's nothing really particular about what happens at that slaughterhouse. It can be any slaughterhouse around the world. What is your reaction to this sort of attempt to play the generous good guy by giving away 1 million hot dogs?
I find it very absurd, and I hope that anybody watching right now uses the hashtag BOYCOTTMEAT, because we really need to spread the word. And it's just absurd. They even had the truck pull up to their own slaughter facilities and give hot dogs out to the workers right there. And honestly, if I haven't had meat for 7 years, but if I did, I'd be worried every time I take a package full of body parts home that there could be a little bonus COVID in there. And I think it's absurd because they should be handing out things that help boost your immune system, not things that are going to compromise it.
Now, I believe we have Zoe back. Zoe, are you back?
Yes, I'm back.
Okay, fantastic. So we're talking about Zoe's action at UC Berkeley, which is our other big story. There you see the photo of her in the center in the white T-shirt. She is chained. It says "Stop Pandemics." And there's another image of her. And so, Zoe, tell us what you did and why.
Yeah, so, we actually chained, myself and 2 other students, we chained ourselves to Cesar Gate at UC Berkeley. So Cesar Gate, those of you who don't know, is the main entrance of UC Berkeley. It's somewhat famous and it's kind of considered a bit of a historical landmark. So, we shut down that main entrance, and we chained ourselves to that passageway, and we also super glued our hands to the ground so that even if they cut the chains, they wouldn't be able to move us. So we sat there for several hours, and the reason that we did this is because we investigated a factory pig farm that supplies to UC Berkeley's dining hall, so to Cal Dining, which claims to serve, purely sustainable, ethical, humane animal products. And so when I was accepted to UC Berkeley this past spring, I wanted to look into that and see, how real are these claims that UC Berkeley is making. So I was able to find out some of their suppliers. They've been somewhat secretive about those suppliers, but I was able to find out some information, and I found this farm, and, I kind of noticed some red flags right away about this farm. This farm bragged about using gestation crates, and all of these horrible things. And I was like, before we had even stepped foot on the facility, I was just kind of alarmed. They've been involved in a lot of human trafficking scandals. And, they've had workers dying of COVID-19. And I was just shocked that UC Berkeley, of all places, was supporting a company so blatantly horrible. So I decided right away that I was going to look more into this facility. And so we conducted an investigation, and it was the most horrible farm I've ever seen. And it was the most horrible farm that I think all of our investigators have ever seen.
Now, let me ask you a question. I see while you are here, there is a little being on your lap. Who is that?
Yeah, so that is one of the piglets who we found dead inside of this facility. So she had been crushed to death by her mother. And that's one of probably the most horrible thing that we found at this facility. So the barn that we primarily investigated was a gestation facility. So that is where the pregnant mother pigs are housed while they're getting ready to give birth. So the pigs on this farm were in gestation crates, which are crates so small that the pigs can't turn around. They can barely move. Their pregnant bellies were literally sticking out of the sides of the bars. Like, they didn't even fit in the cages. It was really, really horrible.
Just as basis for sort of comparison, this is much bigger. This is the horror of modern day industrialized agriculture. But this is like a really good, spa compared to some of these other places, because you could see that the pig has a little room to move around. I mean, what has become of us? And see how they're painted on top, like they paint numbers and things on top of the bodies. This is the commodification of animals by the billions. And so what I want to read is from an article that was published in the wake of your action by, I believe it's called the Daily Caller, but it's a campus paper. And here is it was a very good article written. And obviously your action had a lot of impact, because here's what the campus spokesperson said. The video was deeply disturbing. While we are examining these allegations, we've advised our meat supplier not to send any products from that farm, and we are actively looking for a different pork supplier. But they added that the campus plans to review all of its suppliers to ensure they have animal welfare clarifications, will discontinue relations with companies that do not meet these standards. And he added, this is the most important thing, Cal Dining has shifted its menus toward plant-based options. Let's do a roundtable on all of that. But first, how do you feel about that incredible accomplishment, Zoe?
Yeah, no, we're really excited. And, we weren't sure how UC Berkeley was going to respond. We were prepared to, possibly push this campaign for a long time and really protest Cal, but literally hours after our big action on this past Wednesday, they responded and they dropped that supplier and announced that they were going to be reviewing all of their suppliers. And one thing that I think is so interesting is that they said that they're going to drop any suppliers that do not meet their standards. And so we are going to be asking for a list of all of their suppliers, and we'll look into all of their suppliers. And what we'll surely find is that none of their suppliers are going to meet their standards. And so that they'll have to drop all of their suppliers. And I actually have a meeting set up with the director of the guy who basically purchases all of the food for Cal Dining. That's his job. I have a meeting with him this upcoming Wednesday to discuss possibly banning meat entirely in the dining halls. So we're making so much progress, and school hasn't even been going for a week so far this school year. So it's really amazing what we've been able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. And I'm really excited to kind of push this forward, because what's so amazing is that I think if we can get meat out of the dining halls at UC Berkeley, that will set an example for universities and schools across the nation and across the world, and could kind of create a trend of moving things away from animal products. And that would just be so incredible for the animals.
And by the way, this is the action just happened the other day, a couple of days ago, right? What day did it? Just like this weekend, right?
This past Wednesday.
Okay, this past Wednesday, there is a dead piglet that is from the farm in question that has now been condemned, certainly the video that you brought in. And your hand, the reason your hand is on the ground that way is you super glued your hand to the pavement. Wow, that's all I can say. Just unbelievable that you took those actions. How old are you, by the way?
I'm 18.
Okay. I would like to get Joe Enriquez Henry's reaction now. You started Boycott Meat, and it's boycottmeat.com. You weren't a vegan, but you're eating plant-based. And your focus was the slaughterhouse workers who were getting sick from COVID and dying. And now you see just how expansive this entire subject is. Actually, we had about 20 different articles that we have been trying to delve into because there's so much happening. New COVID outbreaks in poultry farms. In fact, I think this is it right here. Foster Farms plant in Merced shut down amid uncontrolled COVID-19 outbreak, 8 deaths. Where do you see this movement going? Because another way of saying boycott meat is to say go vegan. But you're approaching it from a very strategic standpoint, which personally, Joe, I think is brilliant.
Right. Well, thank you. I mean, key here is we're doing the consumer boycott, boycotting meat, educating the public on what essential workers are all about in the agricultural sector, specifically in the food processing sector. So when we look at 500,000 workers in this part of the agricultural food processing sector, what we are saying is that this is a toxic environment for workers, many of which are Latinos and other immigrants, people of color. This part of production needs to change. We need to move away from meat production to plant-based production. Clearly, that is the safest way. That is the healthiest way. As Ellen had said before, this is like big tobacco. Eating meat, processing meat is dangerous to the health of people and, of course, danger to animals and to the environment. So education is a key thing in this boycott, in this process. These workers can move away from this type of processing to other types of plant-based production. We've heard PETA talk about this, how these facilities can be changed over to plant-based production. So we need to do that. That's part of the process. We know that many young people are listening to what we're saying in this boycott, and we need to continue to move on. We know that we can change this, but we need to get more information out there.
And, of course, we're talking in a time of COVID. Okay, so here's one of these memes that shows mad cow disease from cows, swine flu from pigs, SARS from bats, bird flu from poultry, MERS from bats and camels. I mean, the list goes on and on. You guys are there on the front lines, on the ground at vigils and protests almost on a daily, but certainly bi-weekly basis. Do you see things changing? For example, with the workers themselves, with the truck drivers, we know some of the police officers who are policing the vigils at Farmer John have actually gone vegan, and they feel very sympathetic, some of them, to the cause. Cesar.
Yes, it's everybody has their journey, and some people, as much as it may seem that the masses are not, boycotting meat or going vegan, there's always hope. Yesterday, we were at our pandemic billboard in Hollywood, and we had a bunch of activists out there with hazmat suits, and just bringing awareness to the public. But I definitely see change. I mean, you talk about Beyond Meat, the greatest stock last year. There's definitely change, and you vote with your dollar every day. So when you boycott meat, you're voting for the win. And I like to win. The workers get to live, the animals get to live, we get to live, the planet gets to thrive for the future.
Ellen Dent, considering this has become to a certain degree a political issue, we know Cory Booker, who was a presidential candidate, is vegan, even though he didn't really advertise it. Tulsi Gabbard was reportedly vegan, but I don't have as much information on her. Now, Kamala Harris has suggested Americans cut back on their meat, but she was very careful to say, I love a good cheeseburger occasionally, which, you could chalk off to A, she might love a good cheeseburger and she's not vegan, but B, this is an issue that has to be approached incrementally. While everybody on this panel would love to see everybody go plant-based overnight, it is a process, not an event. And do you see the changes happening where right now, in the throes of the election season, this issue, meat, has become a political issue, with Vice President Pence essentially saying the Democrats want to take away your meat?
Yeah, I think that, Kamala Harris, she acknowledged that, meat and especially factory farms are destroying our environment. So I thought that was very big of her to do. And I just want to backtrack and say that I'm really impressed by Zoe and the rest of the activist action and how much change they're able to make with just one action. We really don't see that happening a lot. So I feel like I need to go and get some pointers from her. How to do that.
Go glue your hand to a pavement. Okay. Yeah. That's the first thing. If you glue your hand, her hand right there is glued to the pavement. And I have watched these actions for a few years now, direct action everywhere. Truly brilliant in how they combine, the theatricality of marches with incredible undercover investigations. Zoe, there is still, though, the big question mark of why the mainstream media, while you got this incredible write-up. In fact, I thought it was so good, I wrote to the author and I said, great job. Make sure to check out the video and write a follow-up. Do a story about your own personal reaction to the undercover video. But you got a great article. But was the mainstream media there covering you as you did this action in Berkeley? Because I seem to find that despite these incredibly theatrical, ginormous marches with thousands of people, they're generally ignored unless 40 people get arrested approximately. That's the kind of thing it takes to get the media to come out, the mainstream media.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we did not see as much mainstream media coverage as we were hoping for and honestly expecting. And, I think that that's largely because, as I think we've all seen and been frustrated by, mainstream media is very resistant to covering animal rights right now because it's not seen as a popular issue. And we obviously need to change that. And that's why we do stunts like this that, we hope will be shocking enough for the mainstream media. And we did have, 2 different news sites, TV channels come out and do interviews. But other than that and the Daily Cal, we didn't have any other coverage. There's one other article getting worked on, but, we were hoping for more. And I don't have any proof on this, but one thing that I do think is interesting is that this farm that we investigated there have been several other investigations of this facility by other animal rights groups over the years, and there is no national media coverage about any of them, which makes me suspect that maybe this farm is involved in something to silence the media.
I'll tell you, I was in media for 38 years. There doesn't even have to be a conspiracy. You'd have to be very, very see no evil, hear no evil, to not look at the commercials that run in between the segments. Advertiser-based media is ultimately beholden to their advertisers, which are primarily meat, dairy, and pharmaceuticals, with an occasional insurance and an occasional car commercial thrown in. Those are the industries, and those are the three industries that rely on meat. If people stopped eating animals, they wouldn't need the erectile dysfunction pills and the cholesterol lowering pills and all the other pills that they advertise with so many horrible side effects that I can't even watch television and eat dinner at the same time. I'm always going, oh my God, and muting it during the commercials. And we all know, we've all had that experience. It's like they need America to get sick to make money. As Dr. Silas Rao said, we're all being factory farmed. The workers are being factory farmed by going into these COVID-infested slaughterhouses and getting COVID and then infecting their families and the community. The consumers are being factory farmed because we know what they're eating in the terms of this product is cancer causing. Processed meat is cancer causing. It's official from the World Health Organization. I pulled this graphic off of the American Cancer Society website. And we know that the workers, the consumers, even the farmers themselves, the so-called farmers who are operating these giant warehouses, they're stuck in onerous loans and they're trapped as well in the factory farm system. So, we like to say the people aren't evil, the system is evil. So Joe Enriquez Henry with Forward Latino, workers' rights organizations look to you to lead the way. Do you see other workers' rights organizations and unions waking up to the fact that if you really want to speak for the workers who are dying, you can't really call them essential workers or support the industry? Because I think a lot of them try to walk that fine line between saying, we don't want the workers to die, but we don't want them to lose their jobs either when the industry goes away, which it will, which is one of the reasons why we have to transition slaughterhouse workers and farmers to animal-free farming. Your thoughts? Oh, you're muted. You're muted.
Clearly, the worker rights groups, the local unions, are focused on worker safety. It really is up to us through the consumer boycott to really work on educating the public about what needs to be done. We really also need to focus on boycotts that involve chain grocery stores, fast food restaurants where cheap meat is used. Those should be the focus points of us doing our education and being out there educating the public. Will the worker rights groups come along? Will they start playing a part in this? I think it's really going to be up to us first to lead the way because their primary focus has been on worker rights. They don't understand the alternative. We're shifting to plant-based production would be the key thing. We need more examples of that. And that's why, again, the consumer boycott, secondary boycott, focusing on fast food restaurants, chain grocery stores, those would be key areas where we would have more visibility, where you could amplify our message and really gain some media attention if we do that.
And look at this, coronavirus at meatpacking plants worse than first thought, USA Today investigation finds. Now, it says JBS. JBS is a Brazilian-owned. Interesting, the two of the big companies are not even American-owned. JBS is Brazilian-owned and Smithfield is Chinese-owned. But JBS has come out with its own line of vegan meat that I haven't tasted it, but Carissa Krantz, who runs BVeg certification and certified it as vegan, had to do some tests and actually tasted it. And she's vegan from birth. She said she couldn't eat it. It was exactly like meat. She said it was so meat-like that she freaked out. I mean, it was a rave review in an ironic sense. It's like meat. So this is the interesting part, is that the meat companies themselves recognize that this is an industry that is going to die. I think they really are preparing, much like the car companies didn't really want to switch over to electric cars. They could have done it in 1990. We had to wait 30 years. And there's a whole documentary, Who Killed the Electric Car, about that. This COVID is accelerating, I think, the meat companies sense that, oh my gosh, this industry of killing animals has become a real problem. It's not just cruel, but it's a problem for us. Zoe.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that the meat industry is dying, and that's an amazing thing. And these industries are scared. They're scared because not only, are their purchases going down, is their name all over the media in a very negative way right now, but, people are mobilizing against them. And there's one thing that you cannot fight, that you just cannot win against. And that is massive numbers of people taking action against something. And that's exactly what's happening. And the meat industry is going down. And, I think it's only a matter of time until, not only is the meat industry really suffering, but the meat industry is illegal. Because I think that, what's happening in the meat industry already is illegal. It's just really a matter of, is law enforcement enforcing all of the horrible violations, that are happening to the workers, to the animals, to the environment. That needs to be addressed.
As we wrap up, I want to say, Zoe, what you've done so brilliantly is now, on paper, in an article, UC Berkeley has said, well, we're going to make sure that any meat supplier meets with our standards. Now, a lot of times people just sort of say that as window dressing, but they don't go in there to look. And they often go, yeah, nothing to see here, it's fine. But because DXC, Direct Action Everywhere, and you are one of those people, actually go in there and come out with video, and in one case, a piglet, then they have to confront the reality. And so you're predicting they will not find any meat producers that meet their standards. And I think that's going to be an incredible, it's going to force them to transition, I think, if they truly stay true to their word. I would suggest doing a documentary on the whole thing. And then you could play it at campuses around the nation and the world. And they would all have to switch because they all purport to be ethical, institutions of learning, institutions of evolution. So I think your methodology is quite brilliant. And Joe, really incredible work, the way you came out with this news release, basically calling out Smithfield for giving away hot dogs to thank the slaughterhouse workers who have gotten sick and are dying of COVID-19. And well, if that doesn't get you, we're going to give you some cancer-causing meat, which is, it's official. The World Health Organization has determined that processed meat, which is a hot dog, is cancer-causing. And to Cesar, Asebedo, and Ellen Dent with Animal Alliance Network doing incredible work on the ground outside that facility in Vernon, as well as a lot of other actions. Kudos to you. You guys are relentless. Yes, Slaughter Free Los Angeles. That's another group that you're involved in. Yeah. So just incredible work. Again, there's so much happening in this space. We could be here talking for hours, but we are here every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern with more news. Thank you for joining this Boycott Meat Roundtable. Go to boycottmeat.com for the latest. And Joe, do you want to say anything just to wrap it up?
Yes, please go to boycottmeat.com. We have updated information there. Please make a donation. Help us spread the word. We have posters you can download, information. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Heroes all. See you next time on the Boycott Meat Roundtable.